Good people, the NBA Finals matchup is set. We have my hometown team in the Dallas Mavericks playing the best team in the East and the league by the numbers in the Boston Celtics. Before this series even begins, the Celtics are heavy favorites as they should be, considering they are the number one seed not only in the East but in the entire NBA, going 12 and 2 so far in these playoffs, and they happen to be going up against the Mavs, who are a 5 seed. By the rosters alone, this should be a mismatch, considering Boston has two All NBA caliber performers in both Jason Tatum and Jalen Brown, a former 6-time All Defensive performer and 2-time All Star in his own right, in Drew Holiday, and a former first round pick in Kristaps Porzingis, who outside of Jason Tatum will be blamed if the Celtics lose this series since he has been out and injured, even though people forget prior to him being injured, he was a 20-point per game scorer. But when you compare that to the Mavs with just Luka and Kyrie as their team's only all-star caliber players, yeah, this one on paper is a mismatch. During the regular season, Boston put up some truly historically great team stats in spite of, playing in the weaker Eastern Conference compared to the West this year. The team put up a net differential of 11.34 points per game, which is the fifth highest in the NBA, only behind these four teams that should be on the screen right about now. And each one of those four teams won the championship that season. Oh, just for anybody listening that doesn't know what net differential is, basically it measures a team's point differential against the opponents they play based on 100 possessions. Basically, how much do they actually, outscore them with, your main core intact. They also finished the regular season with the best record in the league and won their conference by a staggering 14 games this year, which is insane. For some context, in the last 10 years, the only team that won their conference by double digits was the 2014-15 Golden State Warriors, who won their conference by 11 games. That team also won the title, by the way. Matter of fact, I had to jump into a time machine to find a team that won their conference by more than what the Boston Celtics just won their conference by. And I had to go all the way back to the 1970-71 season done by that historic Bucks team that had Kareem and Oscar on it. And they won their conference by 15 games. When I and others say that this Celtics team is historically great, it is statistical wise a great historical team, and the Dallas Mavericks have no stats like that in the regular season would speak to them being able to match up and beat the Celtics. That said, though, the Mavs might not have it in the regular season, but when you look at what they are doing in these playoffs, their historical precedent starts to actually play out a little bit for the Mavs. During these playoffs, the Mavs have played three teams, all of which had better records than them. In every series, they were the underdog coming in. The only team in NBA history where this happened that I was able to at least find is I think the 1994-95 Houston Rockets, led by the criminally underrated, in my opinion, Hakeem Olajuwon, that saw them beat the 60-win Jazz in the first round, the 59-win Phoenix Suns in the second round, and then the 62-win number one seeded Spurs with that year's league MVP and David Robinson en route to playing in the NBA Finals against the 57-win Orlando Magic team that had, Penny and Shaq. The Mavs this year, during this playoff run, beat the 51-win Clippers, the number one seeded 57-win Oklahoma City Thunder, and the 56-win Minnesota Timberwolves en route to playing this number one seed in the league 64-win Celtics team. If the Mavs pull this off, this playoff run will no doubt, in my opinion, will be one of the greatest runs of all times, and I think they have a great shot of beating Boston, and here's why. During these playoffs, I don't believe Boston has truly been tested. I mean, when you step back and you take a look at it, I think Boston might be the first team that I can remember anyway, that every team they played in the playoffs didn't have their best player playing at some point in the playoffs. Well, then again, there was a team a couple years ago in the Golden State Warriors when Steph won his ring, when every single player or every single team that team played was missing one of their best players. But Boston won up them because every team that they played, pretty much that team lost their best player. In the first round playoffs, Jimmy was hurt. Second round, Donovan Mitchell's out. And then in the conference finals, Tyrese Halliburton, after 3 games in, also got hurt. I do know you can only beat who's in front of you, but man, that's some sus competition right there to actually play against. Even with that, the Celtics have gone 12-2. And when you look at their last series versus Indiana, they won a lot of those games late, which shouldn't actually happen for a team with such historical numbers attached to it, with those great players. When you combine that with the fact that Dallas has the two best closers left in these playoffs in Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving, this could spell disaster for the Celtics. When you take a look at both Luka and Kyrie scoring in the second half of games, they both average over 13 points a game on pretty decent shooting splits. And when you break it down even further into the fourth quarter and you look at their scoring for both of them, they average over 6 points per game on really good shooting splits. Now, when you compare that to the Celtics main duo, I would say that Luka and Kyrie outshines them in this department, even though again the Celtics duo isn't just awful, but they're just comparable to Luka and Kyrie, not in the same class. If Dallas can keep these games close going into the fourth, they might be able to pull out some games, and this to me will be the deciding factor in this series. We will see, who will win, but I'm gonna go ahead and give my prediction right now. I'm going to pick the Mavericks in 6 games, but let me know in the comments who you all have winning. But until the next one, I'll talk to you all later. Take care.